At my son's wedding, I was exposed as an unemployed loser, but what happened next was amazing. Jim stood at the edge of the reception, clutching his drink like it was a lifeline, the bubbles fizzing wildly but reflecting none of the joy around him. As his son Lucas twirled his new bride around the dance floor against the backdrop of joyous melodies, Jim felt like a ghost. The charm of Maplewood surrounded him, tree-lined streets bustled with laughter, and the smell of barbecue wafted through the air, but he felt like an outcast in this celebration of love. Unemployed, a label that seemed to echo louder each time he saw a familiar, pitying smile. Look at Jim. The once proud factory worker he imagined his relatives whispering, their eyes flicking over him as if he were a leaky faucet to be avoided. His heart ached for Lucas, whose happiness shone brightly, while Jim felt trapped under the weight of his own failures. Memories of long hours spent caring for his father and volunteering at the food bank flickered in his mind, a testimony to his worth beyond a job title. Yet, here he was, fighting the feeling of inadequacy with every breath. Linda, his rock, sensed his turmoil. She wrapped her arm around him, offering silent support. "You're doing great," she whispered, her warmth kindling a flicker of hope. Still, shame gnawed at Jim. All he could think about were the whispers of loser in the air, and the emotions swirled inside him, threatening to drown him. He wanted to scream that he was more than his job or the lack of one. He wanted to matter. Before he knew it, the moment had arrived. A microphone was handed to him, shiny and daunting. Everyone's eyes turned toward him, and the room went silent. It was now or never. His palms slick with sweat, Jim cleared his throat, shaking as he took a step forward. "I've struggled this past year," his voice trembled, raw and exposed. "But every hardship has taught me something valuable about resilience and hope." As he spoke, he poured out his heart, the challenges of unemployment, the sleepless nights of uncertainty, but also the rich moments he shared with Lucas, teaching him to give back. "It's not just about what I've lost, but what I've gained," he continued, fighting back tears. "Family, love, those are the real measurements of a man's worth." Just as the room began to fill with empathy, Lucas stood, his eyes blazing with conviction. "Dad, you're my hero," he said, voice steady. He recounted stories that painted Jim not as a loser, but as a man of integrity, strength, and unwavering support. Gasps of surprise filled the room as guests connected with Jim's journey, not just as a father, but a resilient individual. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. And then, magic happened. A venture capitalist, a shadow in the back of the hall, rose, enthralled by Jim's revelation. "I've been listening," he said, stepping forward, a spark of recognition in his eyes. "Let us talk about a fresh start, Jim. I see potential in you." The energy shifted, anticipation buzzed in the air. Guests exchanged glances, navigating the sea of emotions swirling in the room. Could Jim rise from this moment? Would he seize this chance, or would the weight of his past hold him down? As hope started to weave its way into his heart, a question lingered: what direction would his story take next? Jim felt his breath hitch in his throat as the venture capitalist stepped forward, and suddenly the weight of the room shifted. The curious eyes around him seemed to pulse with a new energy, as if they were daring him to grasp this unexpected lifeline. "Potential?" Jim murmured, trying to let the words sink in, letting it dance around his mind like a flickering flame. He'd been living in the shadows of self-doubt for so long that he struggled to believe it. What could this man, this stranger, see in him that he couldn't see in himself? "Absolutely," the man continued, his voice steady and reassuring. "I know you've faced hard times, but that's not all you are. It's clear you've got a spirit that won't break, and that's what makes for a successful entrepreneur." A flicker of hope ignited in Jim's heart. Entrepreneur, he hadn't considered that word in years. Could he really rebuild from the fragments of his past? The memories of working late nights, dreaming of providing for his family, rose to the surface. "But I don't have a plan," he replied, feeling small. "What can I possibly offer?" "You've already offered something invaluable tonight," the venture capitalist pressed on. "You shared your truth, and that resonates with people. Let us harness that. What are you passionate about?" The room seemed to shrink around Jim, his surroundings fading as he focused solely on this unexpected champion standing before him. Passion? It was a word that felt foreign now, buried under heavy layers of disappointment. But there was something, a flicker of an idea. "I've always loved woodworking," he confessed, almost sheepishly. "I used to make furniture, and I loved the feeling of creating something from scratch." The venture capitalist nodded with enthusiasm, as if Jim had just struck gold. "Why not begin there? You could start a business, making custom pieces. There's a market for handmade furniture, especially with a story behind it." Excitement bubbled within him like shaken soda, and for the first time in a long while, the discontent of unemployment was drowned out by a wave of purpose. The guests around the hall, formerly judging or pitying, now seemed to lean in curious, intrigued. Jim's heart raced as he glanced at Lucas and Linda, their faces lit up with pride and encouragement. As applause rippled through the crowd, Jim's eyes brimmed with unshed tears. This moment, this chance, it was more than just about him, it was about the legacy he wanted to leave for Lucas. Could he really do this? Could he transform his passion into something that not only fulfilled him but inspired his son? Jim stood taller now, the microphone feeling less like an anchor and more like a beacon. "You know what?" he said, looking around at the faces that had once felt like adversaries. "I think I'm ready to give this a shot. I won't let fear define me anymore." The room erupted in cheers, the kind that filled his chest with exhilaration, mixing with the tears of joy that streamed down his face. But just as the warmth of the moment enveloped him, Jim noticed the venture capitalist's eyes. They glinted with a hint of caution. "Just remember, Jim. The hardest part will be taking that first step. Are you ready for the journey?" Jim's heart dropped at the weight of those words. He knew the path wouldn't be easy, and doubts threatened to creep back in. The thrill of possibility was there, but so was the fear of failing again. As the cheers began to fade and Jim absorbed this new challenge, he wondered, was he truly prepared to embrace this new chapter, one that could change everything? What lay ahead would take more than just hope, and at that moment, he felt the thrill of the unknown as much as the trepidation of it. What would he face on this journey? Would he overcome the hurdles that awaited, or would the shadows of doubt overtake him once more? Jim's heart raced as the applause faded into a gentle hum. He gripped the microphone tightly, knuckles white. He felt the weight of expectations settle upon him like a shawl, comforting yet suffocating. Lucas was watching, his eyes wide with admiration, and that image drove Jim forward. I want to make something real," he stammered, feeling the surge of determination drown out his doubts. "I want to create things that matter to my life, my family, to people who believe in stories." The crowd nodded, some exchanged nods of agreement, others murmured support. The venture capitalist leaned in. "And what's the first step?" "Finding a workshop," Jim said, the words tumbling out like marbles from a jar. He could see it now, a place with wood shavings on the floor, tools lined up like soldiers, and the smell of fresh pine filling the air. "I want to start small, make furniture again. Then let us map it out." "How will you begin?" Jim paused. He hadn't thought that far. There was a world of what-ifs threatening to drag him under. Yet the spark he felt a moment ago began to flicker with new life. "Maybe I could take a few small orders to start," he suggested, confidence growing in his voice. "Local businesses might want custom displays or chairs. I know a few shops nearby." "That's the spirit," the venture capitalist exclaimed. "Talk to them. Get a few contracts in place. We'll make this happen." As enthusiasm spread through the room, Jim's eyes sparkled with renewed hope. Worries bubbled just below the surface, but he focused hard on the excitement that powered through him. "Okay, so I'll connect with them," Jim said, feeling lighter, almost invincible. He glanced at his son and Linda, grinning like they were stepping into a dazzling future. For the first time, he could see himself as more than just a failed businessman. He could be a creator, a leader for his family. But a shadow flitted across his mind, a nagging whisper of doubt. What if he couldn't deliver? What if this was just another dream destined to crumble? As he wrestled with those thoughts, someone from the crowd shouted, "What happens if it all falls apart?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. Jim's stomach clenched. He could feel eyes turning towards him, waiting for a response. "Well," he began, uncertain. "If it falls apart, I'll just pick up the pieces and try again." The honesty of his words hung around him, and the crowd let out a collective sigh, surprise mixing with admiration. That's the right attitude. The venture capitalist encouraged. Every successful entrepreneur has failed. It's the way we rise that defines us. In that moment, amidst the applause and cheers, Jim realized he was vulnerable but not alone. He was surrounded by people who wanted to see him rise. His heartbeat steadied. He could do this. As the evening progressed, conversations spiraled around him, filled with possibilities and connections. Jim was swept into a whirlwind of ideas and offers. He exchanged numbers, shared plans, and for the first time, he felt like part of a community that believed in him. But just as the excitement reached a crescendo, a message flashed onto his phone. It was a text from an old friend, a reminder of his past failures when things fell apart. The weight of that history threatened to drench his newfound optimism. With his heart pounding, he looked back into the room, where hope still twinkled in the eyes of those who now believed in him. Could he truly rise above his past? Jim needed to respond, but would he let the shadows claim him again? As he swiped to read the message, uncertainty dripped from his fingertips. What decision would he make next, and how would it shape his journey ahead? Jim stared at the message, feeling his breath catch in his throat. The words projected his past failures, vivid reminders of a man he had fought hard not to become. "You see where you're headed? It's not too late to turn back." The text was laced with sarcasm. Jim could almost hear the laughter behind it, the echo of old wounds reopening. He squeezed the phone tightly, the screen almost a part of him. He stole another glance at Lucas, who was chatting enthusiastically with a couple of other kids. That innocence tugged at Jim's heart, propelling him away from the darkness. "Not today," he whispered to himself. "Not today." As the evening faded into night, the audience dispersed, but the electric energy lingered. Jim stepped outside, the cool air hitting his face like a splash of water. He leaned against the brick facade of the building, looking up at the twinkling stars like scattered dreams waiting to be grasped. Linda joined him, her smile softening the weight of his thoughts. "You were amazing in there," she said, her bright eyes reflecting genuine pride. "I can see the fire in you, Jim. You've got this." "But what if," he started but stopped. He didn't want to cloud this moment with fears. "It's just, what if I mess up again?" She placed her hand on his arm, grounding him. "You won't know if you don't take that first step. Look, we've faced hard times together. Remember that day we decided to take a leap and start fresh? It's the same thing now." Her voice wrapped around him like a warm blanket, and in her presence, he felt a surge of resolve. "You're right," he finally said, a smile flickering across his face. "This is about more than just me." Feeling bolder, Jim grabbed his phone and typed out a simple response to his friend. "I appreciate the concern, but I've got new dreams now. Not turning back." He hit send and immediately felt a weight lift. "See? That wasn't so hard," Linda laughed, her eyes sparkling. "Yeah, maybe it wasn't," he said, emboldened. "And I think we should take a trip to those shops I spoke about. Tomorrow. Let us make some connections and sell some of my designs." "Are you serious?" Linda gasped, her excitement infectious. "Jim, that's incredible. I can help too." Jim grinned, the idea igniting a light within him. Their journey was not just his but a shared family venture. Together, they could dive into this new chapter, transforming dreams into tangible pieces of wood and stories. As they walked back into the building to gather Lucas, Jim's phone buzzed again. He hesitated, glancing at the screen. A message from the venture capitalist read, "Excited to see where this journey takes you. Let us meet next week and plan specifics." Hope fluttered in his chest, heavy and rich. Yet, the voice in his mind still whispered. Was he truly ready to take on such a challenge? As they stepped inside, laughter filled the air. The warmth from the party wrapped around him. Part of him wanted to stay in this happy moment, to bask in the support. But a greater part urged him to leap forward. The stakes were high, the fear real. But then again, so was the promise of something beautiful. Could he do it? Could he become the man he wanted to be? Before he could dwell too long, Lucas's cheerful voice broke through. "Dad! Come check out my drawing." Jim turned with a smile, ready to immerse himself in the small joys that mattered most. But as they headed towards the noise of laughter, he couldn't shake the doubt that still twinkled at the back of his mind, casting a shadow over the light. What if this was just another beginning that wouldn't last? The night faded, but Jim knew deep down, he was at the cusp of something grand. Would he realize his vision, or was he destined to see it collapse? The uncertainty hung in the air like the last note of a beautiful melody, lingering long after the artist stepped off the stage. As the laughter around him swelled, Jim couldn't help but feel a warmth settle in his chest. Lucas's voice drew him away from his swirling thoughts. The sight of his son's proud little face made everything else fade. He knelt down, eyes level with Lucas's as the boy held up his drawing, a colorful masterpiece of stick figures depicting their family. "Look, Dad. That's you with the big beard," Lucas exclaimed, bursting with excitement. Jim chuckled, his heart lightening. The world around him, with all its weighty expectations and nagging doubts, was replaced by this simple moment of joy. "That's amazing, buddy," he said, tapping his finger on one of the stick figures. "And Mom looks just beautiful." He looked over at Linda, who was watching with a smile, her eyes filling with love and pride. Nevertheless, as the laughter and chatter surrounded them, the earlier message flickered back into his mind. "You see where you're headed? It's not too late to turn back." That nagging voice didn't relent, echoing his past failures like a ghost he couldn't shake off. "Jim." Linda's voice broke through, pulling him back to the present. "What do you think about reaching out to that designer you mentioned? He could help us break into some bigger markets." "Oh yeah, that could work," he said absently, still feeling an edge of anxiety creep in. But when he saw Lucas jumping around with his friends, Jim's heart warmed. He and Lucas were a team, just as he and Linda were. "Maybe we could go even bigger," he replied, sounding a little more confident. "Possibly set up our own little pop-up shop later this summer? I could put together some custom pieces." "Now we're talking." Linda's face lit up at the idea. "I'll help you set everything up. This could be a launch pad for your designs." With a little spark of enthusiasm now lighting up his heart, Jim pulled out his phone and started tapping ideas into a notes app. Hands were washing over each other, ideas ping-ponging back and forth. In this bubble of creativity and support, Jim began to visualize the future that felt less daunting and more like a chance to finally prove himself. Yet, just as his aspirations began to solidify, doubt's familiar voice piped up again. What if it was too ambitious? What if he fell short again? He inhaled shaky breaths, trying to dismiss those thoughts, but they somehow crept closer. "Lucy, can you get us some drinks?" Linda called out, her tone playful. "And ask Dr. Hawthorne if he'll come over here so Jim can bounce some ideas off him." "Okay." Lucas dashed off, leaving a trail of giggles behind him. "Perfect," Jim replied, trying to ignore the whirlwind inside him. "Dr. Hawthorne knows the industry inside and out. He could give me some real insights." As they waited, Jim shifted nervously, glancing at Linda. "What if he thinks my ideas are stupid? What if I can't pull this off?" Linda took his hands in hers, her touch calming. "Jim, you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. If this is something you want to do, just go for it. There's no harm in trying." Her words settled in his chest, a soothing balm against the fears. He squeezed her hands back and dared to dream bigger. What if this was the moment that turned everything around? The buzz of the party echoed around them, but his focus narrowed back to the plan forming in his mind. A vision of a thriving business, a space filled with creations that told stories. Suddenly, a loud pop sounded from the center of the party, drawing everyone's attention. Fireworks lit up the night sky, bringing awe and a collective cheer from the crowd. Jim couldn't help but look up, feeling exhilarated. As dazzling colors danced across the sky, he felt a surge of determination. Maybe this was the sign he needed, the first step toward a dream he was ready to chase. But before he could fully embrace that excitement, Lucas returned, eyes wide with what seemed like curiosity and mischief. "Dad, someone is asking for you," he exclaimed, tugging at Jim's shirt. "Who?" Lucas grinned. It's Grandma. I think she wants to talk about your designs." This new hook sent a shiver of fear down Jim's spine. What could Grandma possibly want? Would she be supportive or bring up his past? The worry settled heavy in his chest. He glanced at Linda, who offered him a reassuring glance. With uncertainty swirling anew, Jim took a deep breath. What would he say to Grandma, and more importantly, what would it mean for his dreams moving forward? Jim could feel his heart race as Lucas dashed off toward the backyard, pulling him along. The vibrant colors of the fireworks still hung in the night sky, casting fleeting glimmers over the gathering. He felt like a moth being drawn to a flame, but this flame brought both warmth and apprehension. "Lucas, wait up," he called as he hurried after his son, his thoughts swirling. What could Grandma want? Over the years, Grandma had often expressed her concern about Jim's career choices. Would she see his ambitions through the lens of doubt or support? As they approached the patio, Jim stole a glance at Linda, who offered a nod of encouragement. Her faith in him always grounded him, but right now, all he felt was a familiar weight of expectation. "Grandma!" Lucas squealed, running towards the elderly woman, her silver hair glinting in the light. Jim's eyes softened as he saw the genuine affection they shared, yet apprehension tinged that warmth. "Jim! Come here." Grandma's voice was strong, filled with a blend of authority and love that sent a shiver down Jim's spine. He stepped up, feeling the collective gaze of family members watching him as he approached. "I caught wind that you're doing something with your designs." Her tone brightened, and for a brief moment, hope flickered within Jim. Yeah. We were just brainstorming some ideas," he stammered, trying to gauge her response while glancing at the curious faces around them. "Brainstorming, huh?" she said with a smirk, folding her arms. "And what ideas do you have cooking for us today, then?" Jim hesitated, then a wave of determination surged through him. "We're planning on setting up a pop-up shop this summer. Linda and I think it could really help promote my work." "Pop-up shop?" She raised an eyebrow. "Son, that sounds nice, but you know how hard it is to get noticed in this industry. It can be as tough as nailing jelly to a wall." Laughter followed, but it was tinged with something else, an eagerness to see how Jim would respond. He felt the joyous buzz of the party around him, but all he could hear was that nagging voice creeping back into his mind. "Maybe you should have a backup plan, Jim. You don't want to fall flat again," Grandma pressed, her tone now serious. The laughter faded. His heart sank. Those words, laden with disappointment, echoed hauntingly. I understand, Grandma. But what if this time is different? What if I actually make it work?" He could feel sweat bead on his forehead, but he pressed on, fueled by a mixture of fear and passion. Her expression softened slightly. "Look, I believe in following your dreams, just remember to have your feet on the ground, too." In that moment, something shifted in Jim. Maybe her concerns were coming from the right place, mixed with the love only family could provide, but he couldn't let her doubts stifle his drive. "I promise I'll make it work," Jim said firmly, surprising even himself with the strength in his voice. "This isn't just a hobby for me anymore. It's a chance to build something real for Lucas and for Linda." Just then, Lucas tugged at his sleeve, interrupting the tension between them. Dad, can we show Grandma my drawing now? Jim chuckled, breathless from the confrontation but grateful for the lighter moment. It was a chance to share a bit of joy amidst the weight of expectations. Sure, buddy, he replied, kneeling down to Lucas's level again, the worry slowly fading. As they revealed the drawing, Grandma's face transformed. She leaned closer, her eyes sparkling as she studied the stick figures. Well, isn't this delightful? She exclaimed, and a genuine smile washed over Jim's heart. That's a treasure, Lucas. You've captured the family perfectly. Jim watched the two bond over the drawing, and for the first time since Grandma's arrival, his chest felt lighter. Maybe this pop-up shop wouldn't just be about his designs. It would represent his family, his growth, and perhaps even a reconciliation of sorts with past fears. But just as he began to feel a sense of clarity, Grandma's voice broke through again. You know, Jim, if you ever need advice or a little investment. That statement hung heavy in the air, flickering like the remaining fireworks overhead. An opportunity hung there, but it would be a huge leap, possibly risking everything he held dear. What should he do? The weight of the future pressed in on him once more. Would he dare to take this chance? Would he tell Grandma yes, or shatter the moment with his old fears? The night buzzed around him, filled with possibilities, but which path would he choose? The backyard was a tapestry of laughter, the echoes of the party creating a rhythm in Jim's ears. But as he stood there, a storm brewed inside him. Grandma's offer an investment was a lifeline thrown from a precarious edge. He could almost feel the weight of the cash in her pocket, the familiar distant thrum of what-ifs filling the air around him. Dad? Are you coming? Lucas's voice pierced through his thoughts, pulling Jim back to the moment. His son stood, fingers stained with crayon, eyes wide with excitement, a frail paper in hand. It reminded him of the time he had invested in a class project instead of his career, an endeavor that had disappointed Grandma. He swallowed hard, anxiety crawling up his throat. Yeah, buddy. Let us show her, he said, forcing a smile as he knelt beside Lucas. It was such a simple thing, yet those little stick figures now felt like an embodiment of his child's hope. What kind of example would he set if he allowed his fears to guide his decision? As they approached Grandma again, Jim felt exposed, vulnerable. The porch light flickered, casting shadows that sprawled between their feet. Look, Grandma! Lucas exclaimed, his voice a mix of joy and disbelief. Let me see, sweet pea. Grandma knelt, her face transforming as she observed the drawing. Jim's heart swelled at the sight. He treasured this moment, watching the gap close between Grandma's skepticism and a burgeoning pride. That's you and Dad. Lucas chirped, pointing excitedly to the larger stick figures. And me. We're all together in the yard, just like tonight. Such a wonderful family you've drawn. Grandma's voice wavered, and for Jim, the change was palpable. He caught just a hint of moisture in her eye before she beamed. Lucas, you're quite the artist. And look at the detail, the way you captured your dad's hair, even if it's not quite right. The laughter was contagious, and yet Jim felt an undercurrent of tension as Grandma's gaze slid to him. And, Jim? Maybe you let the colors in your designs be bold, just like this drawing. Show the world who you are. Right, Jim replied, trying to ease the tightening in his stomach. He wanted to believe that he could take that leap, transform that investment into something more, but memories of past failures flashed through his mind like unwelcome ghosts. What if he made another mistake? What if this moment only served to build the weight of disappointment once more? Dad, can I sell my drawing? Lucas chimed in, eager to grasp the concept of entrepreneurship. Jim chuckled, though a little nervous. I think you'll need to practice a bit more first, champ. He squeezed Lucas's shoulder, wishing he could feel as confident as his son. Lucas has the right idea, Grandma interjected, gently shaking her head at Jim. Just be brave, Jim. You've got to embrace these chances, even if they scare you. Especially when they scare you. Her voice steadied him, reminding him that the battle was often about believing in himself. They might have scars from past failures, but they were also shadows of growth. So, Grandma, you think it's a good idea the pop-up shop? He asked, nudging the conversation back to safer ground. Absolutely. But remember, it'll need more than just good designs. She raised an eyebrow and leaned closer, eyes glittering with a blend of challenge and support. Marketing, Jim. You've got to target your audience. And maybe learn to balance one risk with another. Jim took a deep breath. The offering of advice felt less like a warning and more like a challenge, no, a partnership. Inside, a flicker of hope ignited. As he looked at Grandma, Lucas peering up at him with those sparkling eyes, Jim felt something shift. Perhaps right now, being vulnerable wasn't such a bad thing. Perhaps asking for her support could light a new path together. The idea settled in his mind. What if he stepped forward and accepted Grandma's offer? But before he could voice his agreement, the night sky erupted again, sparks cascading like electric dreams. Everyone turned their eyes upward, and for a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. Make a wish, Lucas shouted, face aglow with wonder. Jim raised his eyes to the bursting colors, hope blooming inside his chest. With every sound, his thoughts scrambled, daring him to lose the weight, to take a risk. What would even be his wish? But just as he felt ready to speak the words simmering in his heart, a loud thud cut through the evening, fingers waving as someone shouted. Watch out! His heart raced again as he turned, the moment pulling him back into reality. Something was crashing down not far from where they stood. A sense of dread and urgency twisted inside him. What danger loomed behind the sparkles in the sky, and would it pull them all apart? The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Jim spun around. The laughter of the party faded behind him like a distant memory, swallowed by the urgency pulsing through his veins. In a splintering second, he spotted the source of the chaos. A massive tree branch, cracked under the weight of the fireworks above, had broken free and hurtled toward them. Lucas! Get down! He shouted, panic sparking a urgency he hadn't felt in years. Before he could even move, Grandma surged forward, arms outstretched. The instinctive act sent a wave of cold dread through Jim, but it was too late to scream for her to stop. Time stretched between heartbeats as each second felt like an eternity. The branch landed with a thud, and the sound echoed through the yard like a gunshot. Dust and splinters flew everywhere. In the chaos, Jim's breath caught as he watched his mother dart to the side, narrowly avoiding the descent of splintered wood. Are you okay? Jim rushed to her, heart hammering double time. His mind surged with questions and fear. I'm fine, she exclaimed, urgency in her voice. Her eyes flickered over the fallen branch, then back to Lucas, who had fallen flat against the grass, eyes wide and unblinking. Panic ballooned in Jim's chest. Lucas! Buddy, are you hurt? He dropped to his knees beside his son. Slowly, Lucas lifted his head, unease written all over his face as he processed the moment. Dad, that was really scary, he gasped, scrambling to sit up. Relief poured through Jim as he enveloped Lucas in a fierce embrace. Yes, it was, but you are safe, he whispered, eyes closing for just a moment, savoring the warmth, the heartbeat of his family. They were together and unharmed, yet the suddenness of the event left an uneasy sting lingering in his gut. From behind, Grandma reached out and placed a steady hand on Jim's back, her voice a soft yet firm anchor in the aftermath. See? No matter what happens, we stand together. As Lucas pulled away, Jim caught a glimpse of the partygoers, faces reflecting shock and confusion. Whispers danced through the crowd. A few people were scurrying, assessing the scene. He felt raw embarrassment wash over him. Would they remember this moment? Would they see him as the father of the terrified boy cowering on the grass? The laughter, the colors, the hopes of the evening all felt like a distant high. In that split second, deflated under the weight of vulnerability, Jim could hear his own doubts echoing louder than the cheers from moments before. What kind of man lets his family face danger alone, lost in indecision? I didn't mean for you to worry, Lucas said quietly, looking up at him, unfurling his innocence like a flower. I just wanted to make a wish. The simple honesty pierced through Jim's heart, a reminder of the day's earlier spark. I know, buddy. But sometimes wishes take a little more than just hope, don't they? On the fringes of the crowd, Grandma observed her son with a knowing look. Jim cleared his throat, feeling a new resolve beginning to build. How about we get back to the party and focus on some better wishes? Like a wish for a pop-up shop. Lucas's eyes lit up again, chasing away the lingering shadows. And maybe a big cupcake. With sprinkles. Grandma chuckled, her laughter swaying with the returning energy of the crowd. Jim nodded, feeling a weight lift. Hope fluttered in his chest anew, fueled by the glow of his child's laughter and promises of the night. But then, just as the party regained momentum, a distant siren cut through the ambient sounds, sending a shiver up Jim's spine. He turned towards the road, the thrum of apprehension stirring again. What had they stumbled into, and would the echo of their moment together be snuffed out by something beyond their control? The siren's wail seemed to wrap around Jim, squeezing tighter with each passing second. He tried to shake off the feeling, focusing instead on Lucas's wide smile, which had fought back the shadows. But the unease lingered in the air, heavy and thick. As the crowd churned back into motion, someone from the party shouted, "Is everyone okay?" The concern in their voice seemed to echo Jim's own thoughts, each syllable pulling at the knots of anxiety in his stomach. The distant rumble of the siren underscored a sense of urgency that seeped into the laughter around them. Jim took a deep breath, pushing through the tension. "Let us go check it out," he said, breaking the moment. "Just make sure everyone's all right." Lucas nodded, his little hand finding Jim's as they started moving toward the sound. Grandma followed closely, her presence a steady rock behind them. The crowd began to disperse, whispers of concern flashing across faces like dimming fireworks. When they reached the street, Jim was greeted by an unexpected scene. Emergency vehicles lined the neighborhood, their red and blue lights flickering against the backdrop of the night. A small crowd stood around, phones out, capturing the chaos for posterity as if it were a spectacle rather than an emergency. "What's happening?" Jim asked a neighbor who stood nearby. The man shrugged, his face a mask of mixed emotions. "Heard a car crash or something. They're just checking it out." Turning his focus back to Lucas, Jim knelt to meet his son's gaze. "Stay close, buddy. I want you to be safe," he murmured, suppressing the panic that threatened to rise again. "I'm scared, Dad," Lucas said softly, his small voice barely audible over the cacophony of sirens and murmurs. "I know. But look at how many people are here to help," Jim replied, forcing a smile, even though he could feel the weight of worry pressing down on him. He looked around, spotting a few familiar faces in the crowd, their expressions mirroring his concern. It was comforting, like a patchwork of shared emotions stitching them together. At that moment, Grandma stepped forward, placing her hands gently on Lucas's shoulders. "You know, sometimes we see things that scare us. But it's important to remember, they also bring us together," she explained, her voice soothing yet strong, weaving through the dread. Jim couldn't help but feel gratitude surging within him. She always had a knack for grounding them, reminding him of their resilience when faced with uncertainty. Suddenly, a commotion broke out, voices rising above the crowd. "Look! They found the driver!" Someone shouted, the words cutting through the tension like a knife. Jim's heart raced as he turned to see a figure being led away towards the ambulance, flanked by paramedics. "What happened?" Lucas breathed out, interest momentarily overshadowing his fear. Jim shot a glance at the unfolding scene, taking in the worry-lined faces around him. "I'm not sure, but let us find out." The urge to protect his family urged him close, but he felt drawn toward understanding the chaos, like a moth to a flame. As he navigated through the crowd, he felt a shift inside himself. The chaotic scene stirred something deep, a longing to connect, to help somehow. Maybe this isn't just about us. Maybe we can do more. Yet just as hope began to twinkle in his mind, a loud bang echoed off the walls nearby, followed by a collective gasp. What had they stumbled upon? Would this night reveal more than just fear? Jim's heart raced again, filled with a cocktail of dread and anticipation as he glanced back at Lucas, eyes filled with wonder and apprehension. The real question emerged in his mind: igniting a spark of resolve. How far was he willing to go to protect his family, to learn the truth that lay just beyond their reach? Jim could feel the adrenaline coursing through him as he pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding fiercely against his chest. It was a whirlwind of emotions swirling around him. The reality of the moment, a crash, sirens, and the fear etched on Lucas's young face coalesced into a singular urge, to protect his family at all costs. Stay close, Jim urged, his hand securely gripping Lucas's shoulder. The little boy nodded, eyes wide with both curiosity and trepidation, mirroring the uncertainty that gripped Jim's own heart. He could hear whispers rippling through the spectators, uncertainty igniting in every hushed tone. As they neared the emergency scene, Jim's mind raced with thoughts. How would he explain all this to Lucas? How could he shield his son from the harsh realities of life without smothering his innate curiosity? As they approached the ambulance that had parked on the street, Jim noticed a woman sitting on the curb, her face pale and clammy. A paramedic knelt beside her, checking for injuries while another tended to a small child nestled in her lap. The little girl wore a look of both confusion and trust, unaware of the gravity of the situation. Linda joined them, appearing suddenly at Jim's side, her expression serious but still radiating warmth. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice low. Jim took a moment, considering the situation with clarity. "We're here to support," he replied, glancing at the woman with kindness in his eyes. "Sometimes, just being present is what people need most." The words felt foreign to him but resonated with truth. He had always wanted to fix things, to provide a solution, yet he realized that sometimes the most genuine support came from simply being there. Lucas squeezed Jim's hand. "Dad, can we help?" he asked, his youthful optimism radiating like a beacon. Jim paused, glancing down at his son, then back at the scene. The sirens had carved their marks into the evening. The moment felt weighty but also transformative. "Let us see how we can support them, buddy," Jim said, straightening. Just as he approached the woman, Grandma squeezed Jim's shoulder, leading him closer. "It's okay, dear," she said gently to the woman. "You're safe now. We're here for you." Jim marveled at Grandma's reassuring presence, her hands enveloping the woman's shaking ones, a testament to love bridging the divide even in dire straits. Lucas tugged at Jim's sleeve again. "Can I help?" His voice was insistent, determined. The sincerity melted Jim's heart. He knelt beside Lucas, feeling a swell of pride in his son. "Let us ask first," he said, gently nudging Lucas to approach the paramedic. "Excuse me, sir. Is there something we can do to help?" The paramedic looked up, a hint of surprise on his face. "You're already doing enough just by being here," he smiled softly. "Sometimes, distraction is what kids need. Can you be brave and cheer her up?" With no hesitation, Lucas put on his biggest smile and yelled over, "Hey, I'm Lucas. What is your name?" The woman's eyes flickered towards Jim's son, and a moment later, a tentative smile broke across her face. Jim watched in awe as Lucas's innocence soothed the air, drawing laughter from the little girl. In that instant, Jim felt a shift. Not just for Lucas or the woman but within himself. He realized this wasn't just about him overcoming his doubts or fears anymore. It was about a community that could rise together. It was a chance to support one another, to be part of something greater than their individual struggles and history. As they helped comfort the family, the festive energy of the celebration returned to focus. Jim checked his phone, seeing messages of worry from friends and family still clamoring at the party. Calls flooded in asking if he was okay. But he didn't focus on that. Instead, he felt grounded in this moment, arms linked with his loved ones, that tight warmth reflecting in every heartbeat. As the night drew on and paramedics finished their work, Jim stood with his family under the stars. He felt the pulse of life around him. Voice trembling with a mixture of relief and purpose, he turned to Linda and Grandma. "I think we can build that pop-up shop sooner than I thought." The resolute conviction in his voice surprised him as the fire of hope ignited within. "That's the spirit," Linda chimed, eyes bright with excitement. "And we'll do it together." Lucas bounced excitedly at their side. "Can I help with the designs?" Maybe I can draw something cool. He was alive with hope and enthusiasm. A swell of laughter bubbled forth, almost like one extended sigh of relief. This transformation was not just about triumph but about meanings beyond success: legacy, community, and love. Underneath the shimmer of stars, Jim reclaimed the tether of dreams, a new journey unfolding with every beat of his heart. "Let us do it," Jim declared, a grin lighting his face. "No more looking back." A resounding agreement rang out among them, catching the collective spirit bubble of those who had witnessed the unfolding drama. In the distance, fireworks exploded, showering the night with colors. Those bursts lit up the sky, mirroring the promise and potential that lay ahead. With a heart full of dreams and family by his side, Jim knew this moment was the crossroads of many past doubts and many future triumphs. He stepped forward, ready to embrace the adventure life laid out before him, fueled by love and the collective heartbeat of a family that had transformed through trials. The evening sky echoed with laughter, love, and endless beginnings as they took their first steps into an exciting new chapter, united unashamedly in the arduous yet rewarding journey ahead. And amidst the chaos, hope continued to soar higher and higher. Now, before this moment fades, do not miss the chance to stay connected. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are crafted with love and passion. It's time to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more hearts. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotionally charged ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this remarkable journey of transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's grow this family.